Hello, let's talk about George Martin book Game of Thrones. So, well, my first, maybe think that this book has no clear ending. Well, George Martin wanted to create a big story, a big saga with three books. The first book should be about war between Lannisters and Starks, something like like in England, in Kingdom of England, War of White and Red Roses. So here should be the same, the war between Starks and Lannisters, and then should be the second book about invasion of Daenerys Targaryen and her Dothraki, and the third book should be about the invasion of White Walkers, some dead Finn from the far north, and so there should be three different books, and but we now had only we have 5 books, but only about the first plot line. You see, it should be one book where we had Lannisters and Starks, and Lannisters wins the Starks, and but George Martin didn't wrote one book. He wrote 5 books about the War of 5 Kings, about the War of Starks and Lannisters. It was 5 books. It was very interesting, but in that sense we have only here we don't have a real conclusion. It is intermediate final, but this final is very good. So let's go further. This book is unique because we have a lot of different powers. Well, you see, when we talk about, for example, John Tolkien, The Fellowship of the Ring, or War of the Ring, so we have there, 2 sides, good guys and bad guys. And there are a lot of others books where we just have 2 sides, good and bad, good one and bad one. But here we have a lot of different sides. Well, in this book we have only 2 sides. It is Starks, and they are Starks and Lannisters. But we have also Daenerys Targaryen and the Night Watch, so there are 4 different powers, and only 2 powers are fighting with each other. In the next books we will have a lot of powers, for example Stannis Baratheon or Tyrells and others, for example Dorne. And you see, and it is very interesting because it is kind of difficult to write about different sides who fight with each other. It is much more difficult because, if there are 2 sides, you have to write about their relationship. It is only, 2 tensions. If there are 3 sides, so there are 6 tensions. And if there are 4 sides, there are, a lot of tension. How, for example, what does Daenerys Targaryen think about Night Watch, Lannisters, Starks, Dorne, Tyrells, and so on? What does she think about all of these things? It is very complex and difficult question for a writer, and this is why George Martin is a great writer. So a lot of people say that there are a lot of sudden deaths here, and it's true. But I don't quite like these deaths, because, you have a character, and this character has some plot line. he has something moral inside him. What is he about? Why is he acting this or that, and why, and what is he going to do in the future? What is his past? And you see, I think that some deaths in this book are senseless. For example, Khal Drogo or Ned Stark. Well, Ned Stark has his own moral. Well, but and we have some explanation why is he acting this or other way. And you see, George Martin, he didn't give to Ned Stark his good ending, his moral rightness to be in such position. He just killed him. Well, I think that if there is a character, so the author should make with this character something good, to develop him in some way, not just to kill him. Because now I see Eddard Stark like a person who acts stupid, and this why he was dead. But maybe he was right. Maybe they should do like the Eddard Stark said, because if he said that the true king is Stannis Baratheon, maybe he was right. I think that it would be very interesting plot, because now in this book, when we see Eddard Stark, and now if we see Khal Drogo, and both of them, Eddard Stark and Khal Drogo, was dead, so we don't have a real conclusion. We don't really have moral rightness for these characters. For example, Khal Drogo, he was a robber, a plunderer, he was a killer, and he just died in a war. And Eddard Stark, he was a very moral person, but he was stupid and he just died. And then the chaos begin, and then we have to do something with that chaos, and it's all. And this is not a very good ending for these characters, I think. Because you skip this difficult work to prove moral rightness for Eddard Stark. Well, now we don't understand in the book why Eddard Stark was right, or he wasn't right, or he was just a stupid person. You skip that work, you just kill them, and after that we have to deal with conclusion of that chaos. And yet one thing, it makes book kind of predictable. When a person gains enough power to stabilize the situation, he should be killed to create chaos, and then we can see that chaos, and after that we have to deal with that chaos. It is not the real ending. And there is another problem. We have a plot in this book. It was proposed that the first book will be about Game of Thrones, about fighting for the Iron Throne. And so you shouldn't think about how to go to your goal, how to write a story, because when we go to a final point, we just kill the main character, then became House, and burn the Ark and all that stuff in this. And in the end, we will kill, George Martin will kill Tywin Lannister, Joffrey Baratheon, and the situation, it seems that it was stabilized, and then no, the situation collapsed in another chaos. And it is sad. I would like to notice a lot of details in that book. We have hundreds of characters and places and castles and different things like Veritwood or dragons or spies, or ravens, and we have a lot of that stuff, yes? And so if we have a lot of that stuff, so it is very interesting to think about all of that, to read about all of this, because I have read a lot of different theories on Reddit and on YouTube about all that stuff with these characters. For example, in the first book was mentioned Windman Manderly, and then I have previously read about this character, and I understand who is he, why is he here, and what is he going to do. And this was very interesting for me, to think about all of that characters, to think about who are they and what do they want. A lot of different details and information which I maybe know. About genre, it is a fantasy book, but not only fantasy, because, yes, it is fantasy because we have dragons and and others and some varied woods and so on. But we also have here a fantasy political drama set in a medieval setting, and we have elements of coming of age novel and detective thriller. But I don't quite like this detective story, because Eddard Stark arrives in a capital, then he only does what Varys or Littlefinger said to him to do, and then he goes to Eddard Stark, and then Eddard Stark goes to Varys or to Littlefinger, and Littlefinger said to Eddard Stark, "Go there, speak to this person, go there," and Eddard Stark do this and does this, and he, it's not very interesting. He doesn't make his own conclusion. About growing, it is interesting because Arya Stark and Robb Stark and Sansa, they are growing. They are becoming elder persons than they are. Earlier they lived in their parents' house, and it was absolutely okay and fine. And then they faced with the troubles, and these troubles makes them grow and makes them old persons. For example, Robb Stark was a child, and then he became an old man who can lead armies. We have also excellent style and writing, and in the end of each chapter we have a hook to the next books. For example, Tywin Lannister said to Tyrion Lannister not to bring his whore to the King's Landing, but Tyrion Lannister decided to do this. He decides to bring his woman to a capital, and the chapter has ended. Or Jorah Mormont asked Jon Snow about, who are you? Are you with me, or are you with other, or you want to go to your relatives? And Jon Snow said, I would be with you. And the end of chapter. No, he said that we will go to beyond the wall. And so on, and each chapter has ended with a hook, and it was very interesting. Yet one time, you see, I think that we will not get the 6th and the 7th book. Never. We will have that books that we have now. Only 5 books about the War of Five Kings. And you know, I think that, and if we will not get the next book, so it would be just the War of Five Kings. It is very interesting, but in that sense, well, we have a lot of different point of views here. For example, Daenerys Targaryen and Jon Snow. And Daenerys Targaryen, he wasn't in this War of Five Kings. He just was somewhere aside. And if he will not invade the Westeros, so why do we need her in these books? She is not very useful. It's just something like filler. Well, the other character that live somewhere else in the end of the world, on the other continent, and who didn't take any part in the War of Five Kings. So we just don't need her chapters. It is also like Bran Stark. If he will not come back to Westeros, if we will not have other books, so we just don't need this Bran Stark here. Why do we need him if we will not get other books and he will be just somewhere in the north? Well, this is the point. Talking about the topics, well, first of all, well, we have a very sad tendency in this book. Well, there was three, well, honorable, worthy, normal people: Robert, Eddard, and Jon Arryn. They were just normal people. For example, well, Eddard Stark. He is honorable man. He is a good man. He doesn't want to kill children and so on. Robert Baratheon. He was, well, a good man. He wanted to kill a child, but only to prevent a war. He wanted to, well, he was beating his wife, Cersei, but I don't think that a lot just because there was Jaime Lannister who wouldn't allow all of this stuff. And there was Jon Arryn. Well, he let the Littlefinger to do all of that stuff with a big dab, but he was honorable man. He was a true man. But they were killed. But from the other side, we have people who unburdened by honor and morality, and they survived. For example, Tyrion Lannister, Tywin Lannister, and Joffrey Baratheon, and they are honorable men. So I can see in this book that good characters are dying and, well, bastards are surviving, and it is sad. And, well, Martin rejects the allegorical romance of epic fantasy, which essentially means reaping the genre's essence, wonders, ideals, heroism, and moral meaning. But what do we have now? We have a very cruel world that has a lot of misogyny, homophobic, sexism, and patriarchy, and this world shows us men as literally evil, and a lot of women here is just evil. For example, Lysa Arryn or Cersei Lannister, or in future Daenerys Targaryen. So we have just a crucial, brutal, evil world. And what do we have? Now, what shall we do with this world? Just evil for evil? I don't know. And there are a lot of sex and violence. For example, sex with 13 years old girl, Daenerys Targaryen, or a lot of rapes, and well, when Tyrion Lannister broke fingers of Merylon, and a lot of violence. And why did Martin show us this everything? Well, he wanted to gain our attention, because if you have something like a pornography in your book, so you can gain attention from readers, because they will go for this pornography and for this violence. We have a lot of cartoonish characters here. Well, if you are a good guy, so you are noble, with pomposity, moralizing, and predictable. If you are a bad guy, so there are everything bad what can be in you. Simpering, pantomime villains giving the perverted sex, the murder of innocents, the mocking of the pain of others, and incest, and a lot of killing, and wars, and robbers, and poison of husband, and so on. And we have a foolish princess here who thinks only of handsome princes and good manners and pink ponies. And we have a court surrounding the declining king, made up of notorious liars, psychopaths, and poisoners. So it is a caricature. And we have a lot of cartoonish moments here. For example, the whale and the nest. The nest of Arryn's, their main castle. Well, you can get there except the very narrow wind, and you can hardly go there by your feet. But who will supply all this castle? How can you get their resources? Or, for example, we have a great wall that maybe 1,000 feet high. Or we have winters 10 years long. Or if you are nomad, so you are very rude, you can, they rape all women, they plunder all cities, they kill everybody, they took slaves, and it is cartoonish nomads. But from another point of view, if you have a lot of houses there in Westeros. You have great houses. They are dukes. For example, Eddard Stark and Tywin Lannister. And you can say who are they and who was their parents and their ancestors. You can say who are their bannermen. Who are they? Each family has its own history, and each place in Westeros has its own history, and we have a lot of mythology here about dragons, about werewolves, about others, about forest children and giants and all that stuff. We have all of this in Westeros, and we have different cultures for each region. For example, Dorne and the North, they are completely different, and different cultures for each part of Westeros. And we have a very big geographical map, and very complete and very strong, and not strong, but it is the brilliant example of world building, just brilliant. And that cartoonish moments from the first books, now we have something more, something others. The world get bigger from the beginning. But we have some other problem with world building here. You see, these villains, they are too evil. For example, what did Tywin Lannister to his son, Tyrion Lannister? He took his wife, he make 100 or 200 soldiers rape his wife, and then he make his husband rape his wife. Make his son Tyrion rapes his wife. So it is a very dangerous and cruel deed. You see, who can stop Tywin Lannister? Well, in Middle Ages it was church. So if you did something wrong in Middle Age, so the church can say that you are wrong, you shouldn't do this, you should do something other, or we set free your people from their oaths to you. Well, in real life, this Tywin Lannister would be excommunicate, and just rebellion would start it. Or for example, do any king, any lord can do anything to their peasants, anything, and nobody would say a word against it. For example, a peasant there can be a peasant rebellion there. Well, it was peasant rebellion, but anyway, if Tywin Lannister or Ramsay Snow, Ramsay Bolton would do such a terrible things, what other lords should do about all of that things? For example, what other lords of the North should think that in the Winterfell there was a terrible person who could kill somebody from theirs? For example, you are lord. You know that your neighbor is a lord, and your neighbor is dead, and his wife was captured by another lord, and she was killed. What should you think about all of this? What other dukes of the North should think about that thing? Well, it is a very terrible thing. And what other people should think about Tywin Lannister? Well, if he did such a thing, well, maybe they should afraid him. Or what the king should think about all of that? About the moral, the dignity, the courtesy, the knight's courtesy. So, in conclusion, it was a very interesting reading. I liked the characters, I liked world building and the plot. I liked all that politician intrigues, and I liked all that stuff of information because I already knew it from Reddit. But I didn't like that moral grayness and that good characters are dead, and I don't like that there wasn't a real conclusion in the book, and I didn't like all that sex sense and sense of violence in this book, and especially with children. So my mark is 5 points out of 10. Thank you for your attention.